Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Ipolito Mubiru with us today. He's founder and executive director at African Diversity and Inclusion Center, ADIC, and he is located in Uganda. So we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion in Africa, which is an interesting topic for sure. This podcast is brought to you by PEPFAR.com. If you want to start scale, be invited to a podcast like this one, or even find sponsors. We help you monetize podcasting, which in my opinion is one of the greatest growth hacks in our modern times. So podpar.com for an agency that can help you start a podcast. Ipolito, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and ADIC?
Thank you so very much, Charles. I'm so very much excited to be here today. My name is Ipolito Muu. I am the Executive Director and Founder for African Diversity and Inclusion Center, which is a Pan-African organization working to advance diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging for women, youths, and minority groups of people. And we do this through health equity, workplace inclusion, and societal inclusion, working through advocacy and education, research, and policy recommendations and carrying out events. We're situated in Uganda, but we work across Africa. Most of our work is done virtually, but we've done consultings moving around the continent.
Why did you decide to start the organization?
My background necessitated that, I should say. I was born, that was in 1985, from a single parent family. My father left our home when I was 2 years, and it was all along my mother who was working through situations to make ends meet for all of us. And just imagine a mother of 14 children. Someone says, whoa, that's a lot. Yeah, indeed, it's quite a lot. But just imagine a mother of 14 children, and she had to fend for all of them. I am the 13th of the children. But also importantly is during the growing up years, I could see what my mother was going through. And I can tell you that these are the things that helped me start up the organization in a way that it is actually kind of framed. I'll give you an example. When I was studying, my mother did not have something that was so income generating in the start. But somewhere, somehow, there was this village guy who, when they pacted, in Africa by then, so for the fact that HIV and AIDS changed that, people could get together and if, let me say you and I wanted to be brothers, we could kind of get a bean seed, get the 2 seeds in there, the bean pod, but the 2 seeds in there, and you sprinkle your blood on one while I also do the same on the other. And in the course of doing that, I take the one with your blood, you take the one with my blood. And once we do that, then we are brothers. So they pacted, my mother and that very guy, who we call uncle now, and they became relatives. But he was very, very, very instrumental in helping my mother maneuver through the economic challenges and hardships to a point where she was able to get something that was economically generating some funds for her to help us stay afloat, but also to be in position to acquire property. By then, she bought 1 acre of land. I think right now it's around $5,000. Right then it was far cheaper, but even if it was cheaper then, you know, inflation being in, she couldn't raise that money all at once. But because of the help of this man, she was able to help to rather raise the money that she raised through. And from that, the funniest bit of everything is that when she acquired the land and economic generating activity, she was able to take me to a better school, which better school helped me become who I am. And right in there are lessons that actually catapulted me to where we are today, or to the starting of the African Diversity and Inclusion Center. And she was in position to get the money. But apart from getting the money, I think the most important thing here is the importance of he for she that UN Women talks about. He for she, simply how do we get men to realign their their objectives, their goals with women. And through doing that, they are in position to help women become who they're supposed to be. Somewhere, somehow, that's how I was able to go through school, and from going through school, to do something that I really thought would be a way of giving back to the community and needing to work with women and all through that. Another reason that was very inspiring to me to start African Diversity and Inclusion Center was the fact that we've been working through the HIV and AIDS epidemic for quite a very long time. And through that, we do have communities that are called key populations, people who easily can acquire HIV and AIDS and transmit it to others. And because of that, there are the female sex workers, the drug users, and all other key population members. And I had worked there for quite some time. And somehow, somewhere, as we made progress in as far as getting them to accept the challenges they face, but also to introduce something we would call inclusive health services, I saw a need for inclusive workspaces. Because at the end of the day, you're looking at something like, well, someone is healthy. And even when they're healthy, they do have other issues around. Now, where are these other issues coming from? Because it doesn't matter how healthy someone is, if they cannot have something that brings money into their pockets, they will not be having a good life. So that is how we delve into workplace inclusion, working to make sure that we can work at the intersectionality of health equity, workplace inclusion, and societal inclusion to drive Africa to where it is supposed to be. I am happy to say that we were the first charitable organization on the African continent to do something like that. And we are carrying this mantle forward as we help organizations, companies, and governments be forward-looking in as far as D&I, diversity and inclusion, is concerned. Thank you.
So how do you fix all of these problems concretely? Like what are your top goals this year for the remaining 2 months? And how do you deploy these plans of yours concretely, and what results ensue?
Okay, this year we focused so much on increasing our programming in as far as health equity is concerned, specifically looking at if we are covering a larger part of Uganda in as far as health equity, HIV and AIDS is concerned, how do we make sure that we not only cover that part, but we increase our coverage to the whole of Uganda? And through that, we've been able to cover more districts. Right now, we are going to 18, possibly by beginning of December, we shall have rolled out a project that is going in about 25 districts more. But that is something that is more or less sponsored by PEPFAR, the US presidential emergency plan for AIDS relief, to help us do that all across and be in position to reach as many key population groups, as many key population members as possible. As you already know, in Uganda, we already have a lot of laws that are kind of curtailing our work down, but we are also having the support of the Ministry of Health. And there's this kind of misinformation moving around. The government says not helping LGBTQ people, and the Minister of Health says you must give equitable services in as far as health is concerned. So we are there, but again, we keep going because this is our mandate. This is what we are supposed to do. And I like to equate this to what the Red Cross does. When there is an insurgency like what is happening right now in Israel and Palestine and the Gaza Strip and possibly Russia and Ukraine, you'll find that when a Red Cross worker comes, they're not going to take any sides at all. They just have to do what they're supposed to do because it is helping people. And basically, that is what we do. We do not have to take any sides of this or that, but rather to give our work to that. We do hope we shall be in position to do that. We've done work in consulting services, especially at the workplaces, working with more and more companies on the African continent, like I did say earlier, virtually, because lots of them would take a lot of traveling, which traveling we can actually cut off through virtual interviews, virtual work like this, and virtual trainings. We've done a lot of that, and we do hope to continue doing that throughout the coming months until the end of the year, and be in position to do something really, really very helpful to the communities we serve. Lastly, but not least, is economic empowerment, still to the communities we serve. And we've rolled out a project with women refugees to help them combat what is leading so many of them into sex work. And the reason for doing that is because they do not have something to do and they really need to earn money. So we are trying to teach them a few things here and there that can help them become better in what they're doing, and at the end of the day become self-reliant and perform as to the ability that they can.
Right. And is diversity like not a priority in Africa, since the economic development seems to be the focus there? Do you feel that because of that, people are still not ready to talk or think about diversity?
Okay. A few years ago, I was speaking to a certain CEO here locally in Uganda, and I wanted to gauge how he understood D&I and whether it is one of the top priorities of what he's doing. The truth is, so many of the CEOs and business leaders on the African continent don't see D&I as something that is very, very much needed. At least it is not one of the top priorities they're having. And he was quite very insightful, especially in helping us develop products that would be addressing people like him. He was telling me that as for me, when I go out there to shop for specifically board leaders, I am not looking for a certain sex. I'm looking for a certain ability that any person has, regardless of whether they are women or men or whatever. So he was like, as long as I find that in a man, I will bring a man on board. If I find it in a woman, that will be good. But you and I agree on one thing. We do not have a lack of women leaders on the continent or even across the world. However, because of the historic marginalization, some of them may not be seen as we see men because of the so many reasons and the so many challenges they go through in order for them to get to the top. And we've been designing projects and programs around that. One of them specifically is the one I'm leading, where we seek to introduce women leaders to corporate board members, rather to corporate management, for them to understand, for them to appreciate, for them to pick on these women, for them to be so as to create diversity at the board. But at the same time, within the trainings that we offer, we do a lot of trainings about diversity recruitment, where someone looks at specific traits while they are recruiting, so that even as they go beyond that, they can be in position to bring women to the table. And bringing them to the table simply means bringing them and putting them into management positions, and looking and putting a specific eye at line positions that are looked at if someone is to look for a CEO or an MD or something like that. So basically, that could help through with fitting and putting women to where they are supposed to be as we move forward.
Nice. And how does Uganda compare to the rest of Africa on diversity and inclusion, and what part of Africa is the most progressive on this end?
Okay, the most progressive part in Africa is South Africa. South Africa is the most progressive on all fronts, and as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned. Other parts of Africa are just waking up to that. Thanks be to organizations like the United Nations, they are bringing this up and up the more and more. The US government is doing a lot of funding in as far as D&I is concerned, and that funding goes into women leadership, minority inclusion, and things of the kind. But when you see or look at Uganda, it isn't any different from any other parts of Africa. It is just progressing. It is just a young country coming up with quite a lot of challenges. And of course, D&I is one of them. However, it is upon and incumbent upon people like ourselves that we can come up with something as indicative as a training that opens people's eyes. I remember one day I was doing one at one of the leading universities here, and I just had a subtopic about unconscious bias. And it was just very, very energizing to see how people were realizing the fact that actually you may be doing something without realizing what you're doing, but when actually you're biased. So by us shedding lights where the darkness is, we are creating a formidable force across the African continent, and especially in these countries that have not yet appreciated what D&I is all about, for them to appreciate that and take that to the next level and make sure that at least they are designing policies in that place, they are doing incentives, projects, and programs that are helping us become better as an African country, Uganda, as an African continent.
How can diversity impact economic development quite precisely?
I'm sorry, I did not understand the question.
How can diversity impact economic development?
Wow, that is quite very powerful. The UN has, should I say a slogan? Yeah, something like that. It says reaching the fast from the fast and leaving no one behind. What you and I recognize is the fact that opportunity is that intelligence is evenly distributed across the world. It is the opportunity that is not. By giving people that are historically marginalized an opportunity to be, you are creating a world where they can bring their whole selves to the table. And by so doing, you're giving them an opportunity to bring their authentic selves to contribute to the development of us all. I'll give you an example. There are so many invasions that are attached to the Black race, to Black people all over the world. And if Black people were not possibly given an opportunity in those directions, no one would see that, because you already know Black people are being segregated almost all across the world. Just take an example of you and I right here. Had you not reached out to give me an opportunity like this, I wouldn't be here. So by giving people like myself the benefit of the doubt that they can perform, they can express themselves, they can say something, they have something to contribute to the development of us all across the world, then you are giving them the opportunity to become better and to also contribute in their authentic selves to the development of the world. So D&I actually is the bedrock of any sustainable development all across the world.
Nice. Want to know about the rest of this year, like what are your priorities, and then the next one after that for 2024, what do you want to accomplish precisely in numbers?
2024, like I did say, we are working towards expanding our programs. Possibly we're going to be in more countries, especially in health equity, especially that have been ravaged by HIV and AIDS. But also we are exploring how we can incorporate cancer awareness into our work, and as far as health equity is concerned, because it's becoming a very, very huge problem on the African continent, and people need to know what they can do in order for them to be more healthy than they currently are. Putting that aside, we are also deepening programming in as far as women leadership is concerned. There are a lot of resources that are needed, but that doesn't mean we cannot move forward and go forward altogether. So we have to move in a direction that is very welcoming, in a direction that is helping more organizations understand what diversity and inclusion is all about. We're doing a lot of partnerships, left, right, and center, all across, with governments, with corporations, with civil society organizations, so that we may be in position to provide more and more insights into driving Africa towards being as inclusive as it needs to be. In the face of laws that criminalize some of the minority groups of people, our work is simply to move forward with governments and try to explain to them what these laws are going to cause in as far as economic impairments is concerned, and how people will move backwards instead of forward in as far as driving this whole continent towards being inclusive, and of course, economically moving forward.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming on today. Ipo, was interesting. Can you tell me a bit more where to find out more about you and ADIC?
Yes, you can go to our website, African, letter D, letter I, D like David, I like Isaac. So African DI Center, center with ER, CENTER. So it is africandicenter.org. When you go there, you can get more about us. You can write to us through the contact us page, and we shall be in position to get back to you and see what we can do together. I always welcome people that are very nervous, want to help out in Africa. I've gotten quite a lot of people, especially the Black people that have never been to Africa, but they want to contribute something. So we're looking for those people so that we can be in position to build a formidable force that works in and across the African continent, and of course, beyond the African continent, to drive Africa towards where it is supposed to be.